Hey, this is Helene Cronin. I had the chance to sit down with Boston Chris and talk about everything music and everything Helene Cronin and everything coming up and everything that I've been through to get where I am. I hope you'll tune in and listen. We had a great time.
It's time to jam. It's time to mingle. It's time to see what everyone's drinking. It's time to jam. It's time to mingle. It's time to see what everyone's drinking. Until we all lose connection.
What's going on, everybody? My name is Zach Webb. You are tuning in to the Boston Chris podcast. Y'all have a good day.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 47 of the Boston Chris podcast. I am your host, Boston Chris, and today we are talking with Miss Helene Cronin, the self-proclaimed story singer from the Dallas, Texas area, having grown up on Long Island in New York with a stop in South Carolina along the way. We talked to Helene today about so much, including growing up in a large family of 5 children, of which she was one of 5. How she got her start in music, her first memories of music, the lessons she learned from mom and dad. She talks a little bit about her her recent cut, Over Missing You by Cody Johnson, that she co-wrote with Jesse Robb Jr. and Scott Shawn White. We talk about Bree Bagwell. We talk about Scott. We talk about so much on this show with Helene. Her process for songwriting, co-writing, all of the above. I'm just so super stoked to have gotten a chance to talk with Helene Cronin here on the Boston Chris podcast for the first time. Without any further ado, y'all, let's get into it. Oh, I forgot. This also includes not one but 2 songs that we are going to introduce from Helene as well. You're not going to believe it. Let's get into it. Hey guys, Boston Chris with the Boston Chris podcast, and we have come all the way to episode number 46 or 47. Today is 47, I think. Yeah, 47. And we have the remarkable story singer, is the way she puts it, Helene Cronin. How are you today, Helene?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Man,
I like odd numbers. I'm glad I'm 47.
Yeah, nice. I'm excited to have you here. I've had your name pop up on my show in a few episodes. Of course, we have a mutual friend in Scott Shawn White, and he's a consistent co-writer of yours, and just recently had Bree Bagwell on the show, and she sang your praises as well.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge fan of yours, and been listening to your stuff for a while now. I've been featured your songs a couple of times on my platforms as well, and you've included a couple of songs here as part of the episode. The first one here has kind of been career defining, in my opinion. This is Lucky Me. Tell us about this song.
Lucky Me came about, and I've told this story. I almost always have to introduce, when I play the song live, I almost always have to tell a little bit of the story, because it should be an encouragement to anybody who's doing what we do, who is, struggling and trying to figure out how to write songs, how to have a career doing this. But I had been invited to a seminar in Nashville, and it was by invitation only. And it was, they had heard my work, and it was a pitch to publisher meeting, or songwriter search, I think they called it at the time. And it was 3 very well-known men in Nashville, who are still very active and very well-known in Nashville to this day, 20 years later, because this happened in October of 2025, so we're coming up on 20 years. So I went to the seminar. I played songs that weren't ready. I basically had all the doors that I thought were going to open, the publishing deal I thought I might get, or at least just open doors into these guys' offices, all slammed shut loudly. Mm-hmm. So I was really, there are 2 things. I was very disappointed, and I was really mad at myself, because I felt like I had blown this opportunity. So I was on a comp ticket from a friend who flew for American, and I could go standby. So I went to the airport about 3 or 4 hours early in Nashville, and I just thought, I want to get out of town, and very discouraged, tail between my legs. And 2 days later, I got a call from the publisher, and they said, we want to talk to you. And I said, okay. So I went to the seminar. I played songs that weren't ready. I played songs that I thought were going to open, the publishing deal I thought I might get, or at least just open doors into these guys' offices, all slammed shut loudly. So I was really, there are 2 things. I was very disappointed, and I was really mad at myself, because I felt like I had blown this opportunity. So I was on a comp ticket from a friend who flew for American, and I could go standby. So I went to the airport about 3 or 4 hours early in Nashville, and I just thought, I want to get out of town, and very discouraged, tail between my legs. And For some reason, at the ticket counter, there was a guy in line next to me. I had never spoken to a man in uniform or a woman in uniform before, and this guy standing there in his army camo, and I just don't know why, but I struck up a conversation with him and just said, "Where are you going?" And he said, "I'm headed back to the Middle East." And that told me that it was not his first tour. And then he said, "Well, where are you headed?" And I just told him, I hung my head and I said, "Well, I'm going home," because that was my mood at the time. Normally I would have said Dallas or Texas, but I just said, "No, I'm going home." And he just looked at me and he said, "Lucky you." And I really believe it was a God ordained appointment. I think I was supposed to be in town that weekend to meet that guy on his way to Iraq. I was not there to impress a bunch of publishers. The cool thing about that song is I didn't touch that idea for 2 years. So I knew right away it was a song idea. I think it was maybe the end of 2007 when I finally sat down with a yellow legal pad and I just wrote the whole song lyric out. I'm a big rewriter, so it went through a few revisions, and there are a couple of different versions out there on YouTube, but it all poured out. The whole story poured out. That whole second verse, I didn't, where it says, "I stood there silent and all I heard," echoing from his 2 words were all the things he didn't say. And I didn't even figure that out till I sat down to write the song. Anyway, I did a demo of it, and my sister put a video to it. And this is now, by the time it went through these revisions and I kind of felt like I had it in a good place, was 2010. And she put it up on YouTube and it began to go viral, and people, viral in a minimal sense. I mean, viral for me, but people began sharing it and sending it to Hannity and Oprah and Ellen and all the talk show hosts, Huckabee. Nobody responded. And then I went and played it for an event with the Houston Texans, the football team, for a veterans event they did. And somebody there knew Mike Huckabee personally. So the next thing I know, the video is being sent to Mike. Within a few days, I got a call from his producers. Within a week, I was being flown to New York to sing it for Veterans Day. And then it really did blow up. So the song is a true story. It comes from a real experience. It comes from disappointment and heartache. And yet, the places it has taken me and the places it has reached are far greater than anything I could have imagined when I first went up to Nashville for that pitch to publisher thing. So it's really, I don't know, it's like one of those stories that I never get tired of telling. But that's the story behind Lucky Me. A lot of people ask me, have I ever met this soldier? And no, I haven't. I'm pretty sure he was out of Fort Campbell. I vaguely remember what he looked like. But he gave me a gift that day of kind of turning my head around and saying, aren't we lucky that we're not the ones headed over there, that we have our freedom and don't take it for granted? And I feel like that's what that song says to our military community.
And I'm glad you shared it with us today too, because it's such a huge song for you. It kind of identifies who you are as a story singer, and I can't wait to talk about all of that stuff too. But guys, here's Lucky Me by Helene Cronin. Y'all check it out.
I stood in line beside a soldier at the airport ticket counter. We were catching flights in Tennessee. We made a little easy conversation. I asked his destination, another tour of duty in the Middle East. Then he asked me where I was headed to. When I answered home, he just said, "Lucky you." And I thought, lucky me, he's right. I sleep in my own bed at night. I got everything I need and more, all that he gave up to wear that uniform. Lucky me, while he fights a war, I live the life he's fighting for. He is the brave, I am the free. lucky me. Oh, I stood there silent, and all I heard, echoing from his two words, were all the things he didn't say. That he's lonely and scared, battle-scarred, family back home praying hard. He never knows if he'll see another day. But he held up his head and looked me in the eye. And right there in those two words, I could hear a soldier's pride. And I thought, lucky me, he's right. I sleep in my own bed at night. I got everything I need and more. All that he gave up to wear that uniform. Lucky me, while he fights a war, I live the life he's fighting for. He is the brave, I am the free. Oh, lucky me. Oh, I tried to thank him before we parted ways, but the best I could do was a tear rolling down my face. Lucky me, that's right. Freedom comes at a heavy price, and we don't all pay our equal share or know what it's like over there. Lucky us, the ones at home, while others go to the battle zones. They are the brave, we are the free. Lucky you, oh, lucky me. Lucky you, lucky me.
All right, so we are back again, first time with Helene here on the Boston Chris podcast. And we always start with kind of an icebreaker question. And that is, what are your favorite drinks right now? What have you been drinking?
Oh, gosh. Well, okay, I just came back from Key West a week with a bunch of girls. So a martini espresso. I had a few of those.
Oh, my gosh, that sounds amazing.
It is pretty good. Or espresso martini, I guess is what they call it. But yeah, we sat around and drank a few of those. It was pretty fun.
Nice, nice. All right, so this is kind of a circular interview. I like to start at the beginning, obviously, and try to figure out what makes you tick as a creative being. So where did you grow up?
I grew up on Long Island, and a little town up there on the southern shore. And my family moved to Texas. I went through junior high, high school here in Texas. So, you know, my formative years were maybe up there. And then we also had, between New York and Texas, I had a year and a half in Columbia, South Carolina, and I loved that. So it was culture shock going from Long Island to Columbia, South Carolina,
Oh, I
and then
bet.
over to Texas.
And you remember all three stops, right?
I do. I mean, I can still find my house in New York. I was 10 when we left, and I can find my house in Columbia, South Carolina. I know I have like a GPS in my head, I think. But yeah, it was, I consider those early years in New York to be, my whole song Landmarks. I don't know if you've listened to the song Landmarks, it's the title track of my 2023 record. It's all based on being on the boat out there in the bay with my dad, and him letting me steer and pointing things out on land so that I could figure out where I was and help us find our way back. So there's a lot about up there that I remember, the seasons, all of that stuff figures into songs eventually.
And usually, as creative beings, we are impressed young, right? So what do you first remember about music? Like going way back, what is the first thing you can remember musically?
A couple of things. For one thing, my mom made me take piano lessons, and of the 5 kids in our family, I'm the only one that stuck with them. I mean, I played piano all the way up through college, and I'm really grateful for that. I feel like piano is a great instrument to learn scales and relationships and chords. And I had a teacher in high school who taught me theory, so that was exciting. That was one thing. The other is I remember on a long road trip, the first time I was aware of harmony. And our family we would drive, I don't know where we were driving this particular time, maybe up to see my grandparents upstate. But I remember we were singing something like "This Land Is Your Land" or "Amazing Grace" or something. And then all of a sudden my mom started singing this part that was different, but it went with what we were singing. And that's the first time I remember hearing harmonies.
I love
So I
that
think
because you can hear harmonies in a lot of your music. They are very, very present.
yes. And then as I grew up, our family, my older brother was musical and artistic, and he's the one that first started playing guitar. So somewhere in junior high, I started picking up his guitar and playing it. And um, our thing to do, then my parents got me my own guitar. But our thing to do after dinner or at holidays, especially, was to sit around the living room and we'd all pull out guitars and we'd all play everything off the radio and, Paul Simon and John Denver. And I mean, everything. I didn't even know it at the time, but Townes Van Zandt and John Prine songs. And so that's where the harmonies, I really began to develop an ear for harmony and singing and blending and, taking the lead and just learning how songs are structured too, is I think what I was getting a course in.
And looking back, what lessons do you think you learned from your folks that you still apply today?
Um, my parents were not allowed to pursue what they wanted to do. My father was musical, wanted to play violin. His parents wouldn't let him. My mother wanted to go into teaching. Her mother forced her through a series of crazy that I won't go into because it doesn't matter. Kind of made her go down a path that she didn't really want. And because of that, they were very hands off with us. And they really encouraged creativity. So my oldest brother was a visual artist, a jeweler, and a sculptor. And then I went into music, even though I got a business degree. My younger sister does beautiful photography, and for a while used to do hand tinted photography. My next brother is a voice actor and songwriter and singer. And then my youngest brother is the one who got all the people skills. So I figure he's creative in a different way than we are. But every one of us, they let us go our own way. And that took a lot of guts to just trust that we were going to find our way. I think that was one of the big gifts of my parents. Plus, I think my dad secretly had a lot of creative dreams, and my mom was a wordsmith. And so I think, and we always read, they always encouraged reading. So I grew up in a reading household. I think that was really important.
Well, thank goodness for that because I love your wordplay in a lot of your songs, and I want to talk about that in a little while. But so you're in a big family. This is a 7-person household,
Yeah.
and one of 5 children. I imagine that probably made you pretty dang observant, right?
I think it did. Also because I was not a big talker. And so I think all 4 of my siblings are way better or when growing up, were way better at wit and being funny and holding attention and telling stories. And I was the most quiet of the bunch. And I was the one who always wanted to bring everybody together and make sure everybody got heard. But it was a lot of observing how relationships worked, observing who got left out, listening to how stories were told. I don't know. It was hard to have a voice in that family sometimes.
Are you a sponge at this time too? You just sponge everything in, collecting info?
I may have been, but I didn't know it at the time. I was the kid who would walk to school and watch the leaves change and just love the colors and watch a tree. Because up in New York, I mean, you would definitely get the seasons, and I had trees that I liked, and I stopped that and noticed. I don't know, and people. I don't know how well I observe people. I think I'm a better observer of people now than I might have been then. I don't know. That's a hard question to answer.
Kind of your job now, isn't it? In a way.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
So
Trying to explain crazy people. I don't know.
right. So you end up in Texas. Where in Texas did you end up?
Dallas.
Okay.
So my dad moved us all to Dallas, and I went through school here. And I'm still here. It's really Plano, Texas, but I just still tell people
Yeah,
Dallas.
you
It's way
talked about the
easier.
culture shock of Texas. So as I mean, you're what, adolescent. You're 12 years old. So what was that kind of um, evolution like for you as a young person?
I think the biggest thing was being landlocked here because I had grown up on the ocean. I mean, we were on the water all the time.
Yeah.
And I know my dad, when we were first moving here, my vision of Texas was that everybody had a ranch. So he told us we could have, we could probably have a horse. And, my sister's the one that was horse crazy and dog crazy, but we never got a horse. We lived in a neighborhood just like we had in New
Hmm.
York. So it was funny. I think really not being near. So this is not a diss on Dallas, but there's not the outdoor stuff to do here that there is up there unless you're a lake person or you like to hunt or fish, or it's
Hmm.
just not the same. You can't just walk down to the beach and go strolling and make a day of it. So I think that was a hard adjustment for our whole family.
Yeah, and a lot of people here wouldn't even understand. Like Long Island is so different than New York City, even though
Yes.
it
Yes.
is part of New York City and it's not far from urban. It is
Right.
very far from urban, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
Like it's
It is. And
yeah.
going back there as an adult, it's really a beautiful place when you go out east on the island. And our family would sometimes spend a weekend or something out in Sag Harbor. And so I've dragged my husband out there to see it and tried to find a place where we used to visit. And, it's gorgeous out there.
Mhm.
I didn't know it. I didn't know that that's where the rich people lived out there in the Hamptons.
Exactly right.
Ah,
Oh man,
it's a
yeah.
different lifestyle.
It's definitely you drive in that area and they don't know your car, you're going to be called on every single time. Yeah,
Probably.
every single time.
Probably.
Speaking
Yes.
from experience.
Yes. Well, are you from Boston?
I am originally, yeah, and we'd go
Yeah.
down to New York a lot, when the parents didn't know where we were. Gosh, we got in so much trouble back then. Because I mean, New York is, from Boston, it's like, like a 2.5 hour drive. That's
Hmm.
nothing in Texas time.
Yeah.
So, um,
That's true.
yeah. But like
That's
up
the other
up
thing
there,
is
that's
there
like
you
4 or 5 states, right? Yeah.
yes. I was just going to say that you can cross multiple states up there in the amount of time it takes you to get across
Man,
Texas.
I
So that was
remember
nice.
I remember thinking Connecticut was huge because
Oh,
it took like an hour to get through Connecticut, and now just to go to a doctor's appointment, it's like an hour. You know what I mean?
yes. Yes.
Uh,
Yep.
so when you're in Texas again, you're an adolescent. When do you start like really perhaps thinking that music is a little more than a hobby for you? Is that happening at a young age, or is that more when you're an adult?
That's more when I was an adult, but I think the foundation of it all is when I was young and learning songs and learning to, be able to play guitar and sing at the same time, and then learning chords and learning song structure, all of that just being absorbed. But, I don't think I had the knowledge of songwriter as a career because when I was in college, I changed majors 3 or 4 times. I changed colleges 3 or 4 times. And I finally just kind of out of just desperation, I had moved to Denver and I spent a year working there. And I finally just applied to University of Colorado at Boulder. And I thought I'll just get a business degree. And so I got a business degree with an emphasis in human resources. And I did that for a while. I thought I would never come back to Texas, but I did. I moved back to Dallas and began to work and met my husband, and we got married, and we were trying to. I began writing songs in college, so I'd been writing, and I was still involved musically, and I would like lead. I was very involved at my church, so I would help lead worship at church services and stuff, and play for weddings. And so I'm doing all this, but I'd written a wedding song, and then I wrote a few more. And in college, I started writing a song a week, and so it was there, and it was all bubbling up, but I didn't own it for a long time in terms of I am a songwriter. I was earning a living writing songs on the side.
Hmm.
So it wasn't until I don't know, I think sometime I began writing contemporary Christian music. And so that was my first foray into recording. I did 3 albums worth of Christian music. And then joined Dallas Songwriters Association, and I'm hearing all these people writing country songs, and they're people like me. They're people who have other things going on in their lives, and they're not all, 20. And they're writing country songs. And I had grown up really not liking country music very much because it was so twangy. But as I began to listen to the radio, I'm hearing songs that tell a story. I'm hearing songs that lyrics matter. And I'm going, I love this. And so I really began to hone in on listening to everything that was on country radio, finding that that's where the songs went, where lyrics and mattered and stories mattered. And I began writing. And then I started to have little nibbles of success because I started going to Nashville and got a little bit of attention. So then I think that's when the bug bit. I was like, okay, I gotta keep going to Nashville and kind of figure out how they do things. And couple of trips in the late 90s, and then I stopped because my kids were young. So this has been a long development through many, many seasons of life for me. But I think I started going to Nashville 4 or 5 times a year in 2004. So it's been I'm on a 21 years of
It's funny because that's kind of the same path that Scott takes too. Back and forth between Texas and Nashville.
Yeah.
So are you writing in a publishing deal as well in Nashville, like Scott is?
I have had publishing deals. I'm not in one right now, and I don't really feel the need for one. The only thing I miss about publishing deals is sometimes a publisher can get you into writing rooms with people who have had more success,
Right.
or they're level of writer. So I miss those connections, and I miss having somebody who can, when I write a great song, can pitch it to artists. And the quandary about that, though, is that a lot of artists aren't cutting what we call outside songs. So if I'm not Lainey Wilson writing my own stuff, then my song is going to have a very slim chance of ever getting to Lainey Wilson, much less if it did, her cutting it
Right.
and recording it. So some of that it's just the nature of the business now, is we're not outside cuts. Or Cody Johnson's one of the few artists, and he's making a name for himself by recording other people's music.
Yep,
Not putting
especially
his name
Texas
on it.
writers as well. Like Cody's really
Yep.
focusing on that, which is why a lot of folks love Cody Johnson, and he,
Oh.
a phenomenal writer in his own right too. And he's trying to cut songs from artists or writers in Texas.
Yes, he's helped a whole bunch of us out. So yeah, and I'm so grateful that I've got a song on his Leather Deluxe album.
And it's an
So,
incredible song, by the way. I love
Thank
the
you.
song, and you can
Thank
tell it's that your hand is in it just by the wordplay that we were talking about earlier. Like you have a song called "Dear Life," and I love the wordplay that you have in that song, where you're writing a letter to dear life, but then you're holding on for dear life. It's multiple meanings, and you have. That comes up
Thank
in
you.
your songs a lot. I love that so much.
Oh,
I wanted to talk about, you talking about country music, and the songs that I hear that that you have cut from other artists are very country. However, the ones that you put out as an artist are more folk to me. They're more of a folk vibe, a more rootsy Americana feel.
Yes.
Is there a reason for that? Are you writing more marketable stuff in advance, knowing it's going to be for somebody else?
Well, there's I think a couple of prongs of approach to this whole thing. I went to Nashville with the dream that at the time Martina McBride or Tim McGraw or Kenny Chesney, or any of those people would begin to record my songs. In order for that to happen, you have to write country, and you have to write to a level that's not like, well, everybody in Dallas can write at this level. You have to write to the level of the people that are getting those cuts and
Right.
those recordings. And so I began to have to, I was learning, okay, here's where the bar is. I got to hit that, I got to exceed that bar. And I can't write what's on the radio now. I got to write something that I think is, don't limit yourself to what's on the radio, because by the time your song gets to radio, that'll be long past, is what I kept hearing. So that's true. So I'm writing at that level. I'm learning the craft. I'm writing with other people, because most of my writing had been alone. And then what happened is, over time, songs get written that have the polish of Nashville and the country songwriting community, but they have a feel that's more folky. or that's more Americana, or
Yeah.
that's more just down to earth, like John Prine or Guy Clark, or whatever. And those are the songs that make it onto my records. Do I still write commercially? Do I have other cuts coming out that are? Yeah, I do. But that has become less important to me than coming up with songs that I want to put out into the world. And so that's been kind of the cool uh, evolution of my career as a songwriter, is that I have slipped into this role of artist, which, when I started going to Nashville, and I have a couple of kids, I'm not thinking, oh yeah, someday I'm gonna put out records and be an artist. That has happened organically.
So what's that like
And
for
it,
the quiet kid in the family?
yeah, she has found her voice, but not in a, I'm not a hit people over the head with things. Even in my songs, they might have. I just rewrote my bio, and I thought, I love songs that have messages, but I don't want to preach to people. I want my songs to deliver the message, but not in a heavy-handed way. I've never been that person. But yeah, I found out I have some things to say.
Man, one of the things I love about your music, and a lot of folks, a lot of artists could take this the wrong way. I don't think you will. I love that your music is raw.
Ah,
I love the rawness to it. It pulls me in more than other music might, especially from an Americana way, because I feel like a lot of people are trying to. Americana's kind of on the bounce back, right? And I feel like a lot of people are trying to jump into that and almost pandering in a way, like the Tyler Childers clones and people like that. But your
yeah.
sound, your music is so like the antithesis to that, in my opinion,
Hmm,
and I gravitate towards it for that reason.
thank you. Well, I do try to be honest in songs. Almost every song that you might call raw, and there's some on the new record that I can't wait for you to hear. Um, Start with a kernel of truth, something emotionally honest. The facts can be delivered differently in the song, but there will be something that just, like Dear Life. That was written with my friend Brianna Tyson right before COVID. It was February of 2020, and we were just sitting and having a conversation about life and about suicide and about how hard life is. And COVID hadn't even happened yet, and how many people, how important and overlooked mental health is.
Hmm.
And so we're struggling to find a title we want to write. And I said, hey, I have this title. It's just Dear Life. And I could barely get the words out of my mouth before she said, oh, we're writing that. And then she goes, oh, and at the end we could say, and we're holding on for dear life. And I had already put that in a note to myself. So I played her this voice note from a year ago where I said, Dear Life. And I had some of the lyric. I've been thinking about you lately, because lately you've been hard to understand. So I already had some of that. And then at the end I said, and then at the end we could say, and I'm holding on for dear life. So it was like I knew to write that with her. But that song comes from a really real place of struggling to stay in the world and wrestling with the ups and downs and truly the roller coaster that life is.
Yeah, and
So
that's what I'm
thank you.
talking about. Like really, the emotional feel of the songs, the things that everybody goes through, and then
Yeah.
you don't hear those types of songs on the radio
Yeah.
anymore. It's so ticky
Let's
tack,
feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of stuff is meant to feel good and to entertain. And I listen to interviews of bigger artists, and they go, music is to entertain, and that's why I'm up here. And I just think, I'm not ever going to be that person. I hope I am
Hmm.
entertaining, but not rah rah party songs, drinking. I can write those, and I have written a few of those. But when I put my records out, it's going to be songs that I care about and that matter to me. Sometimes there's a fun one, but most of the time it's going to be something I feel like I want to say.
Yeah, you definitely have the fun ones too. Like, don't get me wrong, I've heard a lot of those as well. It's just I feel like those hard truths really need to be heard
Yeah.
sometimes, right?
Thank
Because
you.
like people are dealing with those things, and why shouldn't
Yeah.
we explore them? And it's like in music, for some reason, there's almost like a divide between that and getting to mental health. Whereas TV and books and all other forms of media, that stigma's not there. We're allowed to talk about it
Mhm.
in those spheres, but not in
Mhm.
music. It's just weird.
Yep, it is. And then you have artists that are known for their darker sides, and they
Hmm.
get away with it. And I was surprised when I first put out Old Ghosts and Lost Causes that I was compared to Roseanne Cash in her darker phase, and I don't know, Tom Waits. They're just different people that the names come up, and I'm like, wow, they're all complimentary. I take it all as a compliment. But as somebody who thinks of herself as bringing light to the world, it was like, wow, I do write some dark songs, and
There's
that's
nothing
okay.
wrong. Yeah, nothing wrong with that at all.
Yeah,
So yeah, I mentioned a couple of co-writers that you've written with earlier. We're talking about people like Scott Shawn White, Lisa
yeah.
Carter, Jesse Robb
Uh,
Jr., Bree Bagwell. There's others as well. Just a who's who. You're kind of like, and I'm saying this, she's not. You're kind of the go-to songwriter in Texas here lately. A lot of folks want to write with you.
well,
Um,
that's thanks to Scott putting my name in front of Bree Bagwell. I love Bree Bagwell, and I did listen to your interview with her, and I was like, I didn't know she talked about me that much, but it was very sweet. Bree is one of a kind. I love her personality. She's so funny on stage, funny in person,
yeah.
and yet a serious writer with serious writer chops. And so writing The Rescue with her, and then we wrote Roof Over My Head that Sarah Hobbs put out. And if anybody in Texas knows me, it's either because of Scott, Jesse Robb Jr., or Bree Bagwell. I mean, Scott and Bree both will mention my name,
Mhm.
and not every artist does that. A lot of us keep our cards, close to the chest, but they are always promoting other people. Every time Bree mentions my name, I get new followers
Yeah,
and new
Bree's just
listeners.
amazing like that anyway. Like she's just such a trumpeter for everybody in the
She
scene.
is.
You know,
She
truly
is.
is. And
Yep.
I tell this story a lot, but the first time I interviewed Bree, we had scheduled where she was going to be doing a gig in Lindale, and so at the time I was doing my podcast at a studio out of Bullard, which was going to be on the
Mm,
way between where she was. I think she was in Houston the night before, and she was going to stop in Bullard, do the interview, and then do her gig that next night in Lindale. Well, at the time, somebody else, I'm not going to name names, wanted to do an interview with her as well. But because her and I were already on the books, and I'm this unknown podcaster, you know what I mean? I'm nobody. But this other person was a legend, still is. And she told the legend no because she was already scheduled with me. And I've never forgotten that. Like,
yeah.
it's just such a validating thing when Bree Bagwell of all
Hmm.
people puts off somebody else because she's already
Yeah.
she had every right to tell me, we'll do this next time I'm through here, and I would have understood,
Yeah.
but
People
that's
like that are generous hearted,
mhm.
in spirit, and they're doing things for the right reasons. And I just hope she has a ton of
I
success.
agree 100%. So back to Helene. One of the things that I love about your music is, we're talking about hard truths and choosing vulnerability in your songs. As a performing artist as well, what goes into your decision making process in deciding which songs to put out? Because a lot of your songs are vulnerable. You put them out on your
Hmm.
records or as singles, you're going to be expected to perform those songs in a live
Hmm.
environment. So you're reliving that vulnerability over and over again. So what's that decision like?
Yeah. Well, it was different. So for the new album, on let me just I brought visual aids. So Old Ghosts and Lost Causes was the first record that I produced with Matt King produced on me. And he was very clear about wanting a well-rounded record. And we went through a lot of songs to pick the ones that were on there. He had a hand in picking, so like Mongrels and Mutts. I would never have played Mongrels and Mutts because to me it was too lighthearted. It was kind of a silly song, and it compares people to dogs, and but he was looking for something ironic and funny. And he said, "Do you have anything like that?" I got through a verse and a chorus of that song. He goes, "That's what I'm looking for. That's what we're putting on there." I said, "Well, it's in 3/4 time." I said, "I don't want it to sound like an Irish drinking song." So he made sure that it had a lot of quirkiness to it. But that's not a song I ever would have put on here. But I love that he had a more well-rounded approach. Same on Landmarks. He didn't want it to be um, too stripped down, and we did bigger production. We layered the songs more. We did some darker songs, and I love how this record. This is one of my daughter's favorite records. But then for maybe New Mexico, Matt is not in Nashville right now. He's working on another business. So I went to the guy that engineered those last two projects, and we did Maybe New Mexico, which is the new record coming out March 7th. And this one, my approach was, what songs am I singing the most right now in concert? What new ones are working their way up? Which ones do I want to be singing? Maybe I've overlooked them. If I'm writing 50, 60 songs a year that are keeper songs, which ones do I want to be singing? And then which ones do I feel need to be in the world? If this is the last record I get to make, what songs have to be on there? So for instance, there's one called Visitors that was a very recent song. And I kept going, no, that can make the next project. But I'm closing almost every show with that song. And I went, no, it needs to go now, because who knows if there's going to be another record. So that's kind of, I don't want every song to sound the same or to feel the same. So I listened to Mitch Dane, my producer, had some input. But bottom line on this record, I went, these song choices, I'm going to be responsible for them. I'll listen to everybody else, but I'm going to make the final choices, room permitting, if we had enough time and studio time to get to them all. So again, I probably had 20, 30 songs to choose from, and I went with my favorites on this one.
I love how you're leading me into my next note. This is so cool. So you talked about, your songs not sounding the same. And one of the things that I've noticed with that aspect of your music is your vocal delivery of each song. And specifically what I mean by that is it seems like when you're within the moment, you're telling the story of each song, you know what to do vocally, whether it's to, quiet a lyric down or to belt it out or whatever. Is there a strategy in that for you, mainly when you're in the studio?
Yeah, Scott and I were talking about this the other day, and he was saying that he's getting ready to do another album, and he said that he wants to have time to sit with the songs a while first and get them under his belt before he goes into the studio. And I think that's a really good point. I could go on about this, but on Landmarks, there were some songs that are bigger songs. There's one called What They Didn't Build, and it's a big, gritty thing about why do people have to tear down things that they didn't take the time to build. And so I've been sitting there singing it, and I have always told people, I've told soundmen, I have this really quiet voice, I'm going to need more vocal. And Matt is the one who taught me, you have a big voice and I love it when you use it, and I need it on this song. And so once we found it on that song, then it's translated into my live performances. I don't belt. I don't have to belt, but I have found power in my voice, and that's thanks to Matt King kind of coaching me through that. But in the studio is where we found it, and then I've been able to apply it wider. On the new record, I don't know. I have to feel a song if I'm going to record it. And when I'm feeling the song, I know how I want this word to sound. I know where I want it to fall off. I know where I want my vocal to break. All of that is what I strive for. And then sometimes there are really cool accidents that happen and little slides. And those things are like magic. When the producer hears that and he makes a note and he goes, okay, I want you to hear this, and I want to put this in there. So a lot of it is calculated. And the other thing I have to say is I never got into this because I wanted to sing in front of people. When I was growing up, I had a real fear of getting up in front of people and speaking. And that was another aspect of being the quiet one. And it's just amazing to me that that's what I do now. I got into being a performer because of songwriting, not because of any dreams of stardom. So I think that's another reason why I sing the way I sing. And, I'm not going to sound like Carrie Underwood, but Carrie Underwood's not going to sound like me.
Well, if you sounded like Carrie Underwood, we wouldn't have a Helene Cronin, so I'm game for that. We talked about harmonies earlier, growing up in harmonies. Is the implementation of those harmonies also a huge part of your delivery of a lyric?
No, I think that comes after. And on the Landmarks record, Matt and I had a blast doing a bunch of layered, cool stuff. So some of it has a 70s retro sound, and there's a whole lot of buried kind of just layers of production in that record. And at the end of it, he goes, I am blown away by your harmony ability. He said, I had no idea you could do backgrounds like that. So that was fun, and it gave me boldness. On the new record, I only sang harmonies on 2 songs. One of them is a song called Rifleman, and it's a song, very, very personal song, autobiographical, about having to get a gun away from my father, who was a marksman in the army. And the other song is a song called God Stopped By. And on Rifleman, I only wanted my voice on that song. I didn't want any other background singers. And God Stopped By was more of a, hey, I think I could throw some vocals on this. So it's just kind of funny to be able to be multifaceted in the studio. I played guitar in a couple of songs. But the background vocals are where things kind of come to life for me. And we have really good people that come in and do more backgrounds. And I just love hearing what they come up with, because they're way more musically trained than I am. They can say, well, I'm a seventh above you. And I'm like, what?
I'm going to lead this next question from your intro on your social media, because it's one of the coolest profile intros I've ever read, and I want to share it with folks out there. It says, story singer, a writer who merges the raw roots of Americana with the polished songcraft of Nashville, possessing a voice as much a character as the ones who inhabit her songs. So my question here is, the term singer-songwriter is thrown around a lot. It's bandied about a lot in the industry. You're using a different term. This is story singer. What's the difference to you?
The difference is singer-songwriter, like you're saying, is way overused. Performing songwriter is way overused. Americana, everybody who doesn't fit something else is Americana. And then I don't know, for some reason, story singer hit me. I know that Lori McKenna and some of the other people say song teller,
Yes.
which is another way of trying to say, I tell stories in my songs, but I've never heard anybody say story singer.
I
And
haven't
thought,
either.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm coining a phrase, and it sticks. I mean, I really think I played a bunch of shows this last week in Key West. 9 out of 10 people that come up to me to talk to me about my songs say, oh, I love the stories you tell. And they mean the setups as well as the story in the song.
Yep.
And so it's a repeated theme I hear all the time. Your stories, your stories, your stories.
Makes people
So
listen, right?
it does. The other thing I think, another word that I hear a lot, and you didn't ask me for this, but I'll just offer it, because the other difference that I see in what I do and what a lot of other, like, young performers, people could sing better than me, play better than me, they maybe draw bigger crowds. The thing that I hear is your songs are so relatable. And I love that word, because that's the whole point of what I do,
Yep.
is relationships, connections, trying to say something that somebody else will go, I wanted to say that, but I didn't know how. Well, I didn't know how either. So I
Yeah,
said,
and the really sad thing is like the only time to find, I'm not going to say the only time, but most of the time the only way to find relatable music is live. It's so saturated in trying to find stuff that you care about nowadays, and DIY and all of that stuff. So like when I find stuff like that, I latch on like big time, you know what I mean? But yeah, I can see that from a live aspect, because most of the stuff that I've gravitated towards recently is stuff that I found live, or somebody recommended to me, from artist to artist or whatever. So yeah, I get it.
yeah.
It's tough, man. I also hear tunesmith a lot, or songsmith
Yes.
is another one. I love Lori McKenna, by the way. I love that you dropped her
Oh.
name. Huge fan.
Neat. Yep.
Golly, she's
Same.
great. I saw her at the Kessler a few
Oh.
years back. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it was her and Glenn Phillips from Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a great show. Great show.
Yeah. She's a master.
Agreed. So you talked about the new record, Maybe New Mexico, is coming out March 7th.
Yep.
What can we expect on this that might be a little bit different?
It's going to be more stripped down. So I didn't have any electric guitar, cello on a couple of songs, just more. I think what I wanted to do is say this record is going to be very much closer to what, if you come to one of my shows, this is me. We did enhance. I mean, we have bass and we have drums and we have, background singers and and more keys on this song too. So we had Charlie Lowell, who used to be with Jars of Clay, and he did a lot of keys and B3 and bells and just all kinds of little enhancements. And it was really nice to have him in the studio with the band playing. So that's different. And then I have one song, Dear Life, that's a piano ballad. I've never put just me and a vocal and piano with cello on an album before.
I
So
absolutely love the
stretching.
cello in it. Love the cello.
And that was a last minute decision. I have a song called Switzerland on the record, and Mitch and I were playing around with it, and he was trying to add some pads, just like strings. And I said, you know what I really think it needs? I think it needs cello. And I think, because I love cello, and I said, I think we could put cello on that and Dear Life. And then I took off and came home to Dallas. And the next week he had a girl come in and lay cello down, and then he sent it to me, and I was like blown away.
It's great. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Smart choice.
Yeah.
So we're going to take a brief break just for a commercial here from my buddy Pappy Middleton at Palmyra Studios down there in Palmer, Texas. Y'all check it out.
I'm putting it together right now, and I'd love to get it out that any student, I don't care how old you are or what, if your heart lies within this kind of domain of the sound, playing, any of that, I'm gonna start taking one day out of every couple of weeks and invite students in for a very small charge, and I will tell you whatever you want. Any question you got, I'll try to answer it.
Well, I will certainly put that out there, and I'll make this a little ad for you, and we can share it.
Because they'll have full access to the studio, everything. I can tell them everything about how all of this started from analog into the digital world, and you'll be able to have hands-on. And I'll show you why analog sounds better than digital.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll definitely cut this out. I'll make a little ad out of it, and we can share it everywhere.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Because I'd love to do it. That's my legacy, is to leave with.
It's pass it down, right?
Yeah.
I mean. All right, we are back with Helene Cronin, episode 47, the odd number for the girl that loves odd numbers. We're going to get into the second song right now, which is the title track that you're sharing with us. It's called Maybe New Mexico. Take us into the room as you're creating this one.
Well, this one was written because I was in a prompt group. Bree Bagwell invited me to be in a songwriting prompt group with her and Paul and some other writers, Texas writers. And basically they would give us a word or a phrase, and we had 2 weeks to write a song. And if we didn't turn in a song in 2 weeks, we were kicked out of the group. They're ruthless. So this week that I was on my way out to Albuquerque to play a house concert, and I was meeting Scott out there. We're going to play this house concert, and then we were going to go up to Lisa Carver's place in Taos and write with her for a couple of days. And so I'm on my way to Albuquerque, and the prompt was Hemingway. And I was trying to think, man, I've never read enough Hemingway. I should read more. And so I was working ideas on Hemingway, but I was also looking at my map to try to figure out where to stay. Town names out there are so interesting, Albuquerque and Tucumcari especially. And so I'm looking at names, and this lyric started to form that was, I spent a night in Tucumcari, fell asleep with Hemingway. So I got Hemingway in there. Last day of January, bitter cold, monochrome gray. Only I had New Mexico monochrome gray because I knew it was about New Mexico. So I finished that verse and got to Albuquerque, did the house concert, and then I went up to Taos, and then Scott joined us the next morning, me and Lisa. And we finished one song called Not the Year. I don't know if you've heard that on Scott's record. And then I said, hey, I have this other little thing I started working on. It's kind of New Mexico towns. And I played, I don't even know what melody. I just made up some kind of melody, and they loved it. And Scott starts pacing around, and he goes, yeah, maybe New Mexico. So we moved New Mexico out of that verse and put it in the chorus, and he's rhyming New Mexico, and he goes, let you go. Anyway, the minute we came up with maybe New Mexico will help me let you go, we were off and running. And it's one of my favorite songs. I play it at every show. It's beautifully moody. But what's funny about the song is I loved it from a songwriting and performing point of view, but I felt it when I watched Lisa perform it at Third and Lindsley in Nashville. And I went, oh my gosh, I've always wanted to write a song like that. And we did. So sometimes hearing your co-writer play a song gives new depth. So that's when I went, that had to be on my new record. And then I decided to name the whole record after it because it's the most unusual title.
And Lisa's a great writer too. She's written so many cool songs as well.
Lisa's a beast.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Guys, this is Maybe New Mexico. This is the official video as well. So this will be, I think, the first time we've included a video here on the show. So this is Helene Cronin at Maybe New Mexico, the title track from the upcoming album coming out in March. Y'all check it out.
Spend tonight in Tucumcari and fell asleep with Hemingway. Last day of January, bitter cold, monochrome, gray. Didn't have a reason for stopping there. Sure didn't have a reason to stay. Thought I might try Albuquerque, just 'cause I like the name. Maybe I'll get lost in Las Cruces, or wander down to some border town, or find my way up to Santa Fe. I know it's a long shot, but God, I hope that maybe New Mexico can help me let you go. I spent a month in Oklahoma, still felt too close to Tennessee. Started heading west, and I'll just keep going till I'm over you and me. Maybe I'll get lost in Las Cruces, or wander down to some border town, or find my way up to Santa Fe. I know it's a long shot, but God, I hope that maybe New Mexico can help me let you go. Let you go. And if this don't work, there's always Arizona or California. But I don't wanna have to go that far. So maybe New Mexico can help me. Yeah, maybe New Mexico can help me let you go. Maybe New Mexico.
All right, so we are back with Helene Cronin, and now we're going to have some fun. These are my fun segments.
All right.
I always say check out an episode to everybody, and you can always tell who has and who hasn't. And I know you watched the Brie one, so perhaps you've seen the having fun segments. This is typically just 4 or 5 segments, so you usually go pretty quick. The first one is called Mount Rushmore. And so basically, you have to give your Mount Rushmore of songwriters. Who do you think are the best 4 songwriters ever? So essentially, you're putting them up on Mount Rushmore. No honorable mentions.
I think Lori McKenna is one of them. Shane McAnally in Nashville. My friend Scott Shawn White.
One more.
Travis Meadows.
Wow, what a great one. I love Travis Meadows. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Yes, I love Travis.
He's one of the ones that made me not be afraid to tell the truth. Because, man, you listen to Killin' Uncle Buzzy.
Yes.
And that is as raw as it gets. And I just went, okay, I'd like to be a female Travis.
Yes. Okay, I see it now. Yeah, I love that. Okay. Good answers, man. Wow. Okay, so the next segment is called What the Heck? So this is basically you have to turn your filter off, right? So whatever enters your brain, you have to speak it. All right? And I'm just going to give you 5 rapid fire questions, and whatever you think has to be said. All right? What do you think was the best thing before sliced bread?
Peanut butter.
I'm not sure that was. Well, maybe it was. Why
I
doesn't
don't know. I'm just thinking of stuff I like.
Why doesn't McDonald's serve hot dogs?
They already have kind of a meat mixture that's not really meat.
The
So
face she just made. Oh my gosh. All right.
I'm not sure they even serve hamburgers, honestly. So.
Usually I edit out silence. There's no way I'm editing that silence out. There's no way. All right. Okay. If a penguin walked into your room right now wearing a sombrero, why is he there and what is he doing?
He's on vacation from Key West. I don't know.
Oh, he's stowed away in your luggage.
He's stowed away. Yes.
What in the world was a penguin doing in Key West?
I don't know. Well, the sombrero, he's got a sun hat on.
They have sombreros in Key West? I thought that was a Mexico thing.
They have a lot in Key West. I don't know. I'm terrible at that kind of stuff. Obviously.
All right. Number 4. What was your most awkward moment on stage?
Spilling a drink.
So you
Which
never...
I have done more than once. Yes, like going to grab a capo and I knock my drink or water over. And people jump up. People jump up to try to help you clean it up. And that it's embarrassing.
So are you spraying the audience with this drink? Is it like a Gallagher concert?
I don't know. I've done it at Poor David's Pub where I'll just reach over and bam, it's gone. And that stage has seen a lot of spillage. I'll just say that.
A lot of spillage.
But people jump up with napkins and then they're trying to help you. And you're just like, let me just disappear for a minute.
All right, last one, number 5. On average, remember this is an average. How many times a week do you hurt yourself attempting to dance in the shower?
Oh, never.
Never. So it's a 0 average.
0 average.
Okay, so
I don't dance. I sing in the shower. I don't dance.
Sing, but not dance. That's good advice from Helene Cronin.
Yes.
All right, that was.
Well, I don't dance. Period. I think I'm always behind the guitar. I'm not a dancer.
That's the smart move. Yeah, dancing is man. There's just no payoff for it. Right? Like even if you do well, people just. You're just like wallpaper. You're going to blend in. But if you do badly,
never.
Everybody's going to know, right? So,
Yes.
there's no payoff to dancing, ever.
Nope.
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 All right.
Not my forte.
That was What the Heck. Next segment is called One Artist. And this is pretty simple. Basically, you can name one artist that you want the entire world to know about. Who is that one artist?
Oh, gosh.
Somebody who's underappreciated, underheralded.
Janelle Arthur.
Okay.
She's a friend of mine in Nashville who has a beautiful, pristine voice. I write with her. She's a dear friend. And I think she deserves stardom. So she's had a publishing deal. She's been on The Voice or one of those shows, or I can't remember, Idol maybe. But I'll just say her because I think the world of her.
I have a selfish reason for asking that when I'm always trying to learn about new artists, and I figured that's a great way to do it. Let's ask artists about the artists they love. You know what I mean?
Well, I would have said Scott, but I already talked about him, and I heard Bree say the Wilder Blues, so I couldn't steal hers.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, her answer was great, and I agree with that
Yes, because it's so
100%.
true.
Yeah, very, very much
Yeah.
so.
But I have so
I
many friends in Nashville who are just like, they're just stars. They're just mega talented, and there's just so many of them.
I think
You know,
right now mine would be, if I were to answer that, and somebody asked me to answer it in comments, I would say Maggie Antone. And I know a lot of folks haven't heard that name yet, but it's coming. You guys are all going to hear that name very, very shortly.
oh, good.
She has an album called Rhinestoned that's just amazing. I love it.
Wow.
But yeah, y'all be ready for that name. All right, next segment is wish list. This is kind of like your own wish list, somewhere that you've never played that you'd like to play, or somebody you would love to co-write with, or an artist you'd like to open for. What's on your wish list?
I would love to play the Ryman, the old church Ryman sometime. And I feel like I would fit well on that stage. I have co-writers. I would like to write with Tom Douglas someday. I don't know if you know him.
Of
He
course,
wrote
yeah.
House That Built Me, and not Little Past Little Rock. Here I'm on a roll here, and Little Rock was his big hit. Um, and then what was the other one?
No, it's open ended. Whatever your wish list
Yeah.
is, like whatever your goals are, essentially.
Yeah. And I'd love to open for somebody like Mary Gauthier. She has really strong following. In fact, they said you're kind of a combination between Mary Gauthier and Laurie McKenna. And I think that's an interesting comparison. Not that I need to be compared, but I feel like her people would like what I do. So that would be an opening slot. That would be cool.
Very, very cool. All right, last segment. This one is called Who Do You Think You Are? So who is Helene Cronin?
Woo! Helene Cronin is a shy girl who's grown up thinking that she didn't have anything to say and couldn't think and didn't have original thoughts. And she's grown into a grown woman who has a lot to say, who has a lot of wisdom to share, and has a lot of good friends to write with, and who has a life that's beyond anything that she ever dreamed back when she was first picking up a guitar at 12.
Awesome stuff. So what's on the agenda for 2025 for Helene Cronin? You got the record. What else is coming?
I'm playing a bunch more in new venues in Texas. I'm playing Dozy Do, opening for Bree next week. No, opening for her at Main Street Crossing in Tomball, and then I play Dozy Do with Scott the next day. Playing Redbird in New Braunfels. Playing Atlanta for the first time for a house concert. I've got somebody in Iowa trying to book me. Just continuing to get my name out there. I'm trying to gig more.
And so, yeah, you getting your name out there. Where would you send people to follow you?
To my website, helenecronin.com, and it's I don't know if that's going to be on the screen, but
There is
HEL.
at Helene Cronin Music is on the screen right now, and we'll make sure
Okay.
that the website is in the description below as well.
Yeah, and I keep my shows and events page very much up to date. But I am getting around a lot more this year, and just looking forward to seeing some new parts of the country and meeting new people.
And there's lots of merch on there too, and that's a great way to
Yes.
support an artist is by
Yeah.
buying their merch and looking awesome. You can buy her music there, and she has lots of apparel as well that you can buy.
Yeah. I have a
Including
brand
one.
new T-shirt.
I love the Humankind T-shirt. You guys should get
That's
you one
brand
of them.
new.
Yeah, I love that one.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, HeleneCronin.com. It'll be in the description below. Follow her everywhere at Helene Cronin Music. And Helene, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I should also say Helene Cronin Music is Facebook and Instagram. Just add the music on the end. Chris, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for the thoughtful questions and making me get out of my box a little bit and
Well, I think you did great. So
think about penguins.
Hey, y'all, this is Scott Sean White, and thank you for tuning in to the Boston Chris Show.